The 10 Times Rule, The Only Difference Between Success and Failure by Grant Cardone. Summary and analysis by Brev Reds. Introduction, The 10 Times Mindset. Imagine walking into a room full of successful people, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and top performers, and realizing that the only thing setting them apart isn't their intelligence, wealth, or resources. It's their mindset, specifically the way they approach their goals. Most people set goals based on what they think is realistic, but the 10 Times Rule challenges this thinking. Instead of aiming for what's achievable, it suggests setting goals that seem outrageous and taking massive, sometimes even uncomfortable actions to reach them. The 10 Times mindset is not just about thinking bigger, but about committing to 10 times the effort, persistence, and determination than anyone else would. This concept, while simple, can lead to extraordinary outcomes in every area of life, whether it's business, personal growth, or even relationships. Let's explore stories of individuals who adopted this mindset and achieved results beyond their wildest expectations. Story 1. John the car salesman, from zero to a record breaker. John always thought of himself as an average guy. He grew up in a small town where the biggest ambition was to get a stable job, work hard, and retire comfortably. When he joined a local car dealership, his goal was simple: sell 20 cars a month like everyone else on the team. This target seemed reasonable, and hitting it meant earning a decent commission. But as John spent more time at the dealership, he started noticing patterns. The top sellers, the ones who drove the nicest cars and lived in the better parts of town, weren't necessarily the smoothest talkers or the most charismatic. What set them apart was their relentless work ethic. One night, while browsing YouTube, John stumbled across a video discussing the 10 Times Rule. The idea of aiming 10 times higher and putting in 10 times more effort struck a chord with him. John decided he would aim to sell 200 cars in a single month, something no one in the dealership had ever come close to achieving. His colleagues laughed at him, thinking he'd lost his mind. Even his manager tried to talk him out of it, suggesting he focus on meeting the standard goals. But John had a different plan. He didn't just want to be another face in the dealership, he wanted to be the best. He started by making a list of everything he did on an average workday, taking calls, attending meetings, handling paperwork, and then he multiplied that effort by 10. If he made 10 calls a day, he now made 100%. Instead of waiting for customers to walk in, he drove around town, visited local businesses, and left his business card at every coffee shop and gas station. He posted videos on social media, offering advice on car buying, and even held live Q&A sessions about the best deals at his dealership. John's days became 14-hour marathons, and he sacrificed weekends to meet potential buyers. It was exhausting, and in the first month, John sold 35 cars, not anywhere near his goal but a significant improvement. By the third month, he hit 80 cars, more than triple the dealership's monthly target. As word spread about his hustle, John started receiving calls from customers who hadn't even considered buying a new car. They came in just to meet the guy everyone was talking about, the car salesman who was outworking everyone else. John's story spread beyond the dealership. Competitors began taking notice, and rival dealerships tried to recruit him with promises of higher commissions. But John stayed focused, and by the end of the year, he did the unthinkable. He hit his target of 200 cars sold in a month. The dealership threw a party in his honor, and John became a local legend. This wasn't just about selling more cars, it was about showing that the limits people set for themselves are often far below what's possible. John's success wasn't a result of fancy strategies or special skills. It was about embracing the 10 Times Rule and refusing to settle for anything less. Story 2. Sarah's startup, The Journey from Struggling to Thriving. Sarah had always been passionate about technology. After working for a few years as a software developer, she decided to start her own tech company that specialized in building software solutions for small businesses. Her initial excitement, however, quickly turned into stress as she realized just how difficult it was to find clients. Despite putting together a sleek website and sending out email campaigns, Sarah struggled to get her first few customers. Most days she felt like she was talking to a brick wall. One evening, feeling particularly defeated, Sarah came across a blog post about the 10 Times Rule. The idea was simple. Whatever you think you need to do to reach your goal, multiply that effort by 10. Sarah realized that she had been playing it safe, making a few calls here and there, and hoping that clients would come to her. If she wanted to make her startup succeed, she would need to go all in. The next morning, Sarah wrote down her new goal. Instead of aiming for 10 clients in a month, she would aim for 100. This sounded absurd, considering she hadn't even reached 5 clients yet. But she was determined to give it everything she had. She redesigned her entire outreach strategy, setting a goal to make at least 100 cold calls a day. She started attending every local networking event, even those outside her niche, and traveled to neighboring cities to meet potential clients in person. Sarah also leveraged social media like never before. She began hosting free webinars on software solutions, sharing her knowledge with small business owners. At first, her webinars had only a handful of attendees, but she didn't let that discourage her. She reached out to every attendee individually, offering a free consultation call to understand their needs better. While some people declined, others were impressed by her initiative and eventually became paying clients. After 3 months of this relentless effort, Sarah's business started to change. She landed a contract with a mid-sized retail chain, which led to more referrals. By the end of 6 months, she had gained over 50 new clients, and her monthly revenues surpassed $100,000. Sarah went from nearly giving up to hiring a sales team to keep up with the demand. This wasn't luck. It was the result of massive action that most people would consider unreasonable. Sarah's story is a testament to the idea that if you're willing to put in the effort, the results will follow, even if they don't come right away. Story 3. Mike's fear of public speaking, turning anxiety into opportunity. Mike had a secret that he kept hidden from his colleagues and friends. He was terrified of public speaking. At his company's meetings, he always found ways to avoid being the one to present. When he did have to speak, he would keep his presentations as short as possible, his voice quivering with nerves. His boss noticed, and it became a running joke among his team that Mike would break out into a sweat any time he had to talk in front of a group. But things changed when Mike stumbled upon the 10 times rule. The idea that fear could be used as a guide hit him hard. He realized that his fear of public speaking was holding him back, not just professionally but in other areas of his life too. What if, instead of avoiding his fear, he leaned into it and aimed to become an exceptional public speaker? Mike decided to tackle his fear head-on, setting a goal to give at least 10 presentations in a month, something that seemed impossible considering how much he dreaded even a single one. He began by volunteering to speak at every team meeting, even when it wasn't required. His first attempts were rough, his hands shook, his voice cracked, and he stumbled over his words. But he kept pushing through, remembering that the goal wasn't perfection, it was progress. To take it further, Mike joined a local Toastmasters group, a club where people practice public speaking in front of a supportive audience. Standing in front of strangers was even more nerve-wracking, but it forced him to get better. He started practicing his speeches at home, recording himself and analyzing his performance. He even signed up for a stand-up comedy class, which terrified him but helped him learn to think on his feet and connect with an audience in a completely new way. Within 6 months, Mike's entire demeanor changed. He became the go-to person for presentations at work, not because he was the best speaker, but because he was now confident and willing. His colleagues noticed, and soon, his boss asked him to represent the company at an industry conference. Standing in front of hundreds of people, Mike delivered a presentation that earned him a standing ovation. This experience didn't just change Mike's career, it changed how he viewed himself. He realized that what had once been a crippling fear was now a strength. His willingness to take massive action transformed not only his job, but his entire perspective on what he was capable of achieving. Story 4. Lisa's real estate leap, from struggling agent to top producer. Lisa had been working as a real estate agent for 5 years, but her career was stagnant. Every month, she just managed to scrape by, barely closing a few deals. She watched as other agents in her office soared ahead, earning big commissions and living the lifestyle she dreamed of. She told herself that they had advantages she didn't. More experience, better connections, or just plain luck. But deep down, Lisa knew she wasn't putting in the effort needed to reach that level. One day she attended a seminar where the speaker talked about the 10 times rule. He emphasized the idea that most people set their goals too low and put in minimal effort, leading to mediocre results. The speaker's words struck Lisa like a lightning bolt. She realized that she had been aiming low, setting safe goals like closing 2 or 3 deals a month. What if she set a goal to close 20 deals a month instead? It seemed impossible, but Lisa decided to take on the challenge. Her first step was rethinking her daily schedule. She noticed that many of her days were filled with activities that kept her busy but didn't lead directly to sales, things like paperwork, long lunches, and chatting with colleagues. So she made a new plan. Instead of working from 9 to 5, she'd work from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., with a relentless focus on client meetings, property tours, and cold calls. Lisa also revamped her marketing strategy. She started hosting open houses every weekend, sometimes even on Sundays, when other agents preferred to take a break. She posted on social media daily, showcasing beautiful homes, sharing tips for first-time buyers, and highlighting the perks of the neighborhoods she covered. She began emailing her previous clients with personalized updates about the market, reminding them that she was there to help if they were ready to buy or sell. Within the first month, Lisa's effort began to pay off. She closed 5 deals, more than she had done in any month before. But it wasn't just the sales that changed. Her whole mindset shifted. She no longer dreaded the long hours or the rejections. Instead, she saw every no as a step closer to the next yes. By the 3rd month, Lisa was closing an average of 12 deals a month. She gained a reputation for being one of the hardest working agents in her office, someone who wouldn't rest until the job was done. Lisa's most memorable deal came from a client who had initially brushed her off. The client, a wealthy investor, had a $1 million property he wanted to sell but wasn't in a hurry. Lisa followed up with him every month for nearly a year, sending him market updates and new ideas for how to position the property. One day, out of the blue, he called her and said he was ready to sell and wanted her to list the property. It ended up being the biggest commission of her career. By the end of that year, Lisa had not only met her goal of 20 deals a month, but had surpassed it several times. She went from being a struggling agent to one of the top producers in her region, earning awards and accolades. The other agents who once seemed out of reach became her peers, and she even found herself mentoring newer agents in the office. Lisa's story shows that while talent and connections matter, nothing can replace the power of relentless effort and a commitment to massive action. Story 5. David's fitness transformation, breaking through physical and mental barriers. David had always been overweight, and he couldn't remember a time when he didn't struggle with his body image. He tried countless diets and exercise programs, but nothing seemed to stick. He'd start strong, lose a few pounds, and then lose motivation. Deep down, David believed that being fit just wasn't in the cards for him. One night, he was scrolling through fitness videos on YouTube when he stumbled across a motivational clip that referenced the 10 times rule. The message was simple: aim for goals that are so big they scare you, and then work 10 times harder than you think is necessary. David felt a spark ignite inside him. What if he could aim higher, much higher than he ever had before? He set a goal to lose 100 pounds in 1 year. It was an outrageous number, more than double what most experts recommend for healthy weight loss. But David was determined to make it happen. He realized that to reach such an ambitious goal, he would have to completely change the way he approached his fitness journey. David started by waking up at 5 a.m. every day to go to the gym before work, instead of spending 30 minutes on the treadmill like he used to. He now spent 2 hours doing a mix of strength training and high-intensity interval workouts. He also signed up for a local running group, even though he had never run more than a mile in his life. The first few weeks were brutal. His body ached, he felt exhausted, and he doubted whether he could keep up the pace. But every time he felt like quitting, he reminded himself that the 10 times rule was about pushing past discomfort to reach a goal that most people would consider unrealistic. David also completely overhauled his diet. Instead of trying to follow trendy diets like he had in the past, he focused on eating whole, unprocessed foods and preparing all of his meals at home. He carried around a gallon water jug, sipping from it throughout the day to stay hydrated. He packed healthy snacks and even brought his lunch to work to avoid the temptation of eating out. At social gatherings, he'd bring his own food to stay on track. After 3 months, David had lost 35 pounds. He could run 5 miles without stopping, something he had never imagined he'd be able to do. But it wasn't just the physical changes that kept him going. It was the sense of control he felt over his life. For the first time, he believed that he could achieve anything if he was willing to put in the effort. One day, a coworker noticed his transformation and asked him what his secret was. David told him about the 10 times rule, and how it wasn't just about doing more, but about changing his entire approach to challenges. His coworker laughed and said, "You're crazy, man. No one has time for all that." But David just smiled. He knew that it wasn't about having time, it was about making time and prioritizing what mattered most. By the end of the year, David had lost 105 pounds. He completed a half marathon, lifting weights that he never thought he could handle. His friends and family barely recognized him, not just because of his physical transformation, but because of the newfound confidence he carried with him. The 10 times mindset had helped him break through barriers he once thought were insurmountable. Story 6. Maria's art business, turning a hobby into a full-time career. Maria always loved to paint. From a young age, she spent hours with her sketch pad, creating colorful landscapes and portraits. But as she got older, life got in the way. She went to college, got a job as a teacher, and art became something she did occasionally on weekends. Every once in a while, a friend or family member would encourage her to sell her work, but Maria always brushed off the idea. Who would pay for her paintings when there were so many talented artists out there? One day, Maria was browsing online and came across a story about an artist who had turned their passion into a thriving business by following the 10 times rule. The artist had started with just a few small commissions, but committed to putting in massive effort, hosting art shows, building a social media presence, and selling their work directly to customers. Inspired, Maria wondered if she could do the same. She set a goal that seemed outrageous, to sell 100 paintings in a year. Up until then, she had sold maybe 2 or 3 pieces to friends. But Maria decided that if she was going to make this dream a reality, she needed to go all in. She started by creating an Instagram account dedicated to her art, posting daily updates of her work, and sharing time-lapse videos of her painting process. Her first few posts got only a handful of likes, but Maria didn't let that discourage her. Next, she reached out to local cafes and restaurants, offering to display her work on their walls for free. Most places turned her down, but one small cafe agreed, and within a week, she sold 2 paintings to customers who had seen her art while sipping their coffee. Encouraged by this success, Maria started attending local art fairs and farmers markets, setting up a small booth where she could display her work. Her weekends became a whirlwind of setting up displays, chatting with potential buyers, and packing up unsold pieces. She also started offering custom commissions, painting portraits of people's pets and family members. The first few commissions were nerve-wracking. What if the client didn't like her work? But Maria realized that the only way to get better was to put herself out there. 6 months in, Maria's hard work paid off. She had sold 55 paintings, and her Instagram following had grown to thousands of art enthusiasts. People started reaching out to her directly, asking if she could paint custom pieces for their homes. One day she received a message from a gallery owner who had seen her work online and wanted to include her in a group exhibition. By the end of the year, Maria had sold 120 paintings, far exceeding her original goal. She quit her teaching job to focus on her art full-time, something she had once thought would only happen in her dreams. Her journey wasn't easy, and there were many moments when she wondered if all the effort was worth it. But every time she doubted herself, she remembered the 10 times rule and pushed on. Story 7. Mark's tech startup, from struggling founder to industry leader. Mark was an entrepreneur with big dreams. He had launched a tech startup that offered an innovative app for streamlining project management in small companies. At first, Mark was confident that his idea would be a hit. He imagined his app becoming the go-to tool for thousands of businesses and being featured in tech magazines. But reality hit hard when, after the first year, his user base barely reached 100, and his company was bleeding money every month. He found himself stuck in a cycle of pitching to investors, getting rejected, and trying to scrape together enough revenue to keep the lights on. Mark felt frustrated, and the energy he once had for his startup was waning. He considered shutting down and moving on to a regular job. But just before he gave up, a mentor recommended that he read about the 10 times rule, explaining how it could transform the way he approached his business. The concept was simple: set massive goals, and then work 10 times harder than anyone else thought necessary to achieve them. Inspired, Mark decided to aim for 10,000 users in 6 months, a number that seemed outrageous given his previous struggles. But if he wanted different results, he needed to take a radically different approach. He realized that just working harder wasn't enough. He had to become relentless in his pursuit of success. Mark began by rethinking his marketing strategy. Instead of relying solely on organic growth through word of mouth, he started investing heavily in online advertising. He taught himself the intricacies of Google Ads and Facebook marketing, spending late nights adjusting keywords, tweaking ad copy, and A/B testing landing pages. He also doubled down on cold outreach, sending thousands of emails to small businesses that could benefit from his app. He wrote every email himself, personalizing each one so it didn't feel like spam. To build credibility, Mark targeted tech blogs and online publications, pitching his story as a scrappy entrepreneur who wouldn't take no for an answer. Many editors ignored him, but one blog published a story about his journey. That one article led to a small but significant bump in user signups. He realized that media coverage was crucial, so he continued reaching out to journalists and podcasters, offering to share his lessons from the trenches of startup life. But Mark didn't stop there. He organized free webinars where he taught small business owners how to improve their project management processes, using his app as a key tool. Each webinar drew in dozens of potential users, and by the end of each session, many would sign up for a free trial. He kept refining the product based on the feedback he received during these webinars, constantly iterating to make it better. By the end of 6 months, Mark's app had over 12,000 active users, exceeding his target. Revenue was finally coming in consistently. And he no longer needed to chase investors because his cash flow was strong enough to support growth. But more importantly, he had become known in his industry as the guy who never gave up, the founder who took his company from the brink of failure to a thriving business. His story is a reminder that even when everything seems impossible, a 10 times mindset can open new paths to success. Story 8. Sarah's journey to public speaking. Overcoming stage fright with massive action. Sarah had always been terrified of public speaking. Even in small group meetings, she'd freeze up and stumble over her words. This fear held her back at work, where presentations were a regular part of her role. Every time her boss asked her to present in front of a client, she'd find an excuse to avoid it. One day, after another failed attempt to speak confidently in a meeting, Sarah realized that if she didn't conquer this fear, she'd never advance in her career. She came across the 10 times rule while browsing online, and one part stuck with her: you don't have a talent problem, you have an action problem. It wasn't that Sarah couldn't become a great speaker, it was that she wasn't taking enough steps to get better. Inspired, she set a goal that seemed terrifying: to speak in front of 100 different audiences over the next year. It was a goal far beyond what she thought she could handle, but Sarah decided that was the point. She started small, volunteering to give presentations at local community groups and events. Her hands would shake and her voice would tremble, but she pushed through the discomfort. After each presentation, she'd ask for feedback, cringing at the criticism but using it to improve. She joined a local Toastmasters club, where she forced herself to participate in every meeting, even when the thought of speaking in front of others made her want to turn around and run. Sarah also practiced at home, recording herself speaking on her phone, then watching the videos back to critique her own performance. She realized that she spoke too quickly, her hands fidgeted, and she often avoided eye contact. So she focused on slowing down, using pauses to emphasize key points, and making eye contact with her imaginary audience in the mirror. It was uncomfortable, but she kept at it. As the months went on, Sarah's confidence began to grow. She went from speaking in front of small groups of 10 to addressing rooms of 50, and then 100 people. One of her biggest breakthroughs came when she spoke at a regional conference on a topic related to her industry. She spent weeks preparing, practicing her speech dozens of times until she knew it inside out. When she took the stage, her heart raced, but as she started speaking, she noticed the audience nodding along, engaged with her message. For the first time, she actually enjoyed being up there. By the end of the year, Sarah had given over 120 speeches. Her transformation didn't go unnoticed at work. Her boss, who had once thought of her as shy and reserved, began entrusting her with high-stakes client presentations. Eventually, Sarah was promoted to a leadership role, something she never thought she'd achieve. Her story proves that no fear is too big to overcome if you're willing to put in the massive effort required to conquer it. Story 9. The 10 times rule in customer service, a company's turnaround story. A small tech company named ClearTech was struggling to retain its customers. Their software had potential, but their customer service was a disaster. Customers would wait days for a response to their support tickets, and online reviews were filled with complaints about poor service. The company's CEO Tom knew they needed to make a change if they wanted to survive. They were losing clients faster than they could bring in new ones, and their reputation was tanking. Tom decided to apply the 10 times rule to their customer service approach. He set a new goal for the team. Instead of aiming to respond to customer inquiries within 48 hours, they would respond within 10 minutes, no matter what time their request came in. It sounded impossible. ClearTech was a small company, and they didn't have the resources for a 24/7 support team. But Tom believed that if they could pull it off, they would turn things around. To make this happen, they hired a few additional support reps and changed their entire workflow. They created a rotating schedule so that someone was always on call, even during evenings and weekends. They implemented a new system that categorized tickets based on urgency, ensuring that critical issues were prioritized. The team set up automatic alerts on their phones so that whenever a new ticket came in, they'd know instantly and could jump into action. At first, the new approach was chaotic. The team struggled to keep up with the pace, and there were nights when Tom himself had to stay up answering tickets. But as the weeks went on, they found their rhythm. The average response time dropped from 48 hours to under 15 minutes. Customers started noticing the change. Suddenly, reviews began to shift from negative to positive, with users praising the company's quick and helpful service. One customer, a small business owner named Karen, had been on the verge of canceling her subscription after weeks of issues with the software. But when she reported a critical problem one evening and got a solution within 10 minutes, she decided to give ClearTech another chance. She even went online and changed her previous negative review, writing, "I'm blown away by how fast they fixed my issue this time. ClearTech is really stepping up their game." As their reputation improved, word of mouth began to bring in new clients. Within 6 months, ClearTech's churn rate had dropped by half, and their customer base was growing faster than ever. Tom reflected on the journey and realized that applying the 10 times rule to customer service had not only saved the company, but also created a new culture of excellence within the team. They weren't just reacting to problems anymore. They were anticipating customer needs and delighting clients in ways that their competitors couldn't match. This story shows how the 10 times rule can be applied not just to individual goals, but to an entire organization's way of thinking. By setting a seemingly impossible goal and pushing the team to achieve it, ClearTech transformed from a company on the brink of failure to a customer service leader in their industry. Story 10. Jake's financial comeback, digging out of debt with 10 times effort. Jake was drowning in debt. After years of living beyond his means, credit card bills, a car loan, and student debt, he found himself $60,000 in the red. He felt trapped, barely able to make the minimum payments each month, and saw no way out. Every time he tried to create a budget or cut back on expenses, an unexpected bill or expense would throw him off course. He was starting to believe that he'd be in debt for the rest of his life. One day, a friend recommended that he read about the 10 times rule. At first, Jake dismissed it as just another self-help concept, but the idea of taking massive action stuck with him. He realized that his previous attempts to manage his debt were all about making small adjustments, cutting back on coffee, eating out less. But he needed a drastic shift in strategy if he wanted to make real progress. Jake set a goal to pay off all $60,000 of his debt in 18 months. It sounded impossible, after all, his job barely covered his living expenses. But he was determined to give it everything he had. He started by picking up a second job delivering pizzas in the evenings and working freelance gigs on the weekends. Every extra dollar he earned went straight toward his debt. He also overhauled his spending. Jake sold his car and started using public transportation, even though it meant adding an hour to his daily commute. He moved into a smaller apartment, cut cable, and canceled all non-essential subscriptions. He sold off gadgets, clothes, and furniture he didn't need, turning every spare item into cash to chip away at the debt. It wasn't just about cutting back, though. Jake knew he had to think bigger. He started attending local networking events, and eventually landed a higher-paying job in his field. With his new income, plus the money from his side hustles, he was able to make triple payments on his debts each month. Instead of just paying down his debt little by little, Jake was attacking it. By the end of the 18 months, Jake had paid off every cent. The feeling of relief and freedom was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He'd gone from being weighed down by debt to having a positive net worth and a new perspective on what was possible. Jake's story illustrates that when you apply 10 times thinking to even the toughest challenges, you can achieve results you never thought possible. Conclusion: your path to 10 times success. Actionable steps to get started. The 10 times rule is all about aiming higher than you ever thought possible and taking massive action to make those goals a reality. Now that you've seen how others have applied these principles, it's time for you to put them into practice in your own life. Here's how to get started. 1. Set a massive goal. Take a moment to reflect on your biggest dreams, whether they're related to your career, finances, health, or personal growth. Then, multiply that goal by 10. If you want to earn an extra $5,000 this year, set a goal to earn $50,000. If you want to get in shape, aim to become an athlete. The goal should be big enough that it makes you feel a little nervous, because that means it's pushing you out of your comfort zone. 2. Create an X action plan. Break down your massive goal into specific actions you need to take daily, weekly, and monthly. Ask yourself, what would I need to do every day to make this goal a reality? Make a plan that includes stretching beyond what you think is possible, like sending out more job applications, making more sales calls, or spending extra time honing a new skill. 3. Shift your mindset to massive action. Commit to taking more action than you think is necessary. Double, triple, or even quadruple your efforts in every area. If you think it takes 5 calls to get a client, make 20 instead. If an hour a day of study is your current routine, bump it up to 3. Don't stop until you're putting in the effort that matches the scale of your goal. 4. Embrace discomfort and rejection. Pushing for 10 times success will mean facing rejection, discomfort, and failure along the way. Don't let these moments deter you. Instead, see them as signs that you're on the right path, because if you're not encountering challenges, you're not pushing hard enough. Each rejection is a step closer to a yes, and each setback is an opportunity to adjust your approach. 5. Track your progress and adjust. Keep track of your progress daily. Celebrate the small wins, but always ask yourself how you can push even further. If a strategy isn't working, don't be afraid to pivot. The 10 times mindset isn't about rigidly sticking to a plan. It's about adapting and always aiming for greater results. Keep looking for ways to improve and scale your efforts. 6. Surround yourself with 10 times thinkers. Find a community of like-minded people who are also striving for big goals. Whether it's through online groups, local networking events, or mentors, surrounding yourself with ambitious individuals will keep you motivated. It's easier to maintain a 10 times mindset when you're not doing it alone. 7. Never settle for average effort. Remind yourself every day that average effort will lead to average results. Make a habit of asking, am I giving this task everything I've got? If the answer is no, push harder. Approach every aspect of your life with the intention to over-deliver, whether it's at work, in your relationships, or in pursuing your passions. 8. Visualize success daily. Take a few minutes every morning to visualize yourself achieving your 10 times goal. Picture how it would feel, how your life would change, and the pride you'd feel in your accomplishments. This practice keeps your goal top of mind and strengthens your determination to make it happen. 9. Take the first step now. Don't wait for the perfect time to start. The best way to build momentum is to take the first step today, no matter how small it might seem. Sign up for that course, send that email, make that call, or start that workout. Once you get started, commit to not letting a single day go by without moving closer to your goal. By embracing these actionable steps, you'll be living the 10 times rule and positioning yourself for extraordinary success. Remember, it's not just about thinking bigger, it's about acting bigger. The path to achieving your dreams is closer than you think, as long as you're willing to push yourself beyond what you thought was possible. Thank you for completing another BrevRead video. Like and subscribe to see more of our videos. If you have a particular book that you would like us to summarize, please share it in the comments section below.